just about the platforms themselves.
To the preservation of the national unity and democratic stability.
Water is life, water is an essential service, and then we must have to carry out the residents.
Local communities are not only vital to the growth of society, but they also form the bedrock of humanitarian development.
Hello and welcome to The Reporter, a news and current affairs program that goes beyond the headlines, bringing reporters from the field to give first-hand accounts and in-depth analysis of unfolding issues, correspondence, perspectives, ensuring balance, credible and comprehensive storytelling. Welcome once again. I am Anieti Patrick. Let's start on this note. The Office of the Head of Service of the Federation has received a certificate of air quality from the Environmental Health Council of Nigeria under the Federal Ministry of Environment. The recognition is part of the ongoing greenhouse gas emissions initiative under the National Air Quality Program. Our correspondent, Ubong Usoro, completes the story.
Officials of the Environmental Health Council of Nigeria conducted emission tests at the Office of the Head of Service Generating Plant before and after introducing a fuel additive known as Oxaterm under the National Clean Air Program. Initial readings showed hydrocarbon levels at 500 parts per million. After the additive was introduced, carbon monoxide reduced to 420 parts per million, while hydrocarbons dropped to 220 parts per million. Combustion efficiency also improved. The Registrar of ECON, Yakubu Mohammed Baba, said the result highlights the effectiveness of a proper emission monitoring and mitigation in public institutions.
We need to reduce this emission for the protection of public health. You are quite aware that so many vulnerable groups, more especially women and children, are exposed to a lot of emission as a result of pollution caused by mobile and non-mobile objects. So we came up with that initiative so that we can be able to reduce the disease burden for the protection of public health.
The director representing the Office of the Head of Service thanked ECON and reaffirmed the office commitment to maintaining high environmental standards.
Mobilizing with one reflecting part of staff who have been coming around. Unfortunately, the permanent secretary, the head of service, they are involved in the farm set selection program.
The initiative forms part of Nigeria's broader efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and promote cleaner air. Ubong Usoro for Global Television News, Abuja.
And joining me live right now is Ubong Usoro to bring us up to speed on how that went down at the Head of Service. Hello, Ubong. It's good to have you join me on The Reporter. How are you doing, Ubong? All right, let's get out on this, Ubong, if you can hear me loud and clear. Well, how significant is the air quality certification awarded to the Office of the Head of Service under Nigeria's National Air Quality Program, Ubong?
All right, so what actually happened is that the Environmental Health Council of Nigeria, who's in charge of making sure that institutions comply with the Nigerian Air Quality Act, is going on to visit some institutions, and they started with the Office of the Head of Service, where is because that is like the fulcrum of the civil service, right? So they went there, they went to the generating plant, and they took samples. Then they added some additive called Oxaterm, and after that addition, they took samples again, and it was in compliance with the national standard for air quality. So that was actually what happened. And the National Health Council of Nigeria have also said that they'll be going to the NNPC and the CBN in carrying out these measures to make sure that all government parastatals and offices have the required emission level standard. Right, the required emission level standard for carbon monoxide, it is 400 ppl. That's per million. While for hydrocarbon, it is below 250. So, and there's another one called combustion level. So those three sample sizes are what they took out the test, and they saw that the office of the head of service is in compliance with the required standard.
Able to establish the facts on all of this issue and how these levels can cut across. What do the emission test results involve? Let's say including the reduction in the hydrocarbon and carbon monoxide levels after the introduction of the Occitan reveal about the effectiveness of environmental monitoring in public institutions. Just like you mentioned, is going to be cut across. How will the monitoring be in the public institutions?
Right. I think that because the public institutions are supposed to be the backbone of environmental awareness and environmental monitoring, and that's why the Environmental Health Council of Nigeria, under the Federal Ministry of Environment, is starting with the office of, the head of service. Because if public institutions do not keep to these standards that we set by them, remember this standard for emission levels, that's carbon monoxide, hydrocarbons, and the rest. They were being set by the Ministry of Environment and also by the NASRIL, another department in the ministry. So if the institutions are not complying, it means that we have a long way to go. So I think for me, it was a good one that the head of service is complying, and now the National Health Council of Nigeria can now head up and go for assessment in other places, other companies, other businesses, and hold people accountable. Because if the office of the head of service can be in compliance, who are you to now run a business and not do it? So I feel it's a good start, it's a good place to start, because sometimes we've talked about this as a country. We should beam our searchlight on institutions. Let's start from institutions, and we cannot talk to private people at the end of the day. So this is what it is. Institutions are in compliance. So those who are running private businesses should get ready, because the National Health Council of Nigeria may soon be visiting, and if you are not in compliance, you may have to pay some fines.
In what ways is this initiative aligning with Nigeria's broader effort to cut greenhouse gas emissions and promote cleaner air across governmental facilities? Yes, we've mentioned the compliance level, all of this, but we've always had issue of clean air. For instance, we've seen where we have pollution from vehicles who are not supposed to be motorable on the road or applying the road network. We see all of those things happen, and also see people trying to improvise in terms of how they prepare their meals, all of those things. But let's talk about that. How do we promote clear air across government facilities? Because just for instance, like we have in the FCT, we have the facilities across different ministries and all that. How would this help to promote clean air across the facilities we have?
Yeah, and yet absolutely what you are saying is true, because sometimes we just talk, and we know that a lot of companies, a lot of agencies, a lot of ministries do not, keep to these standards. And I think away from just going to the head of office, they should send a warning to those who are not in compliance with the required standard that has been set by the nation. But I think the National Health Council of Nigeria is ready for that, because the Director General, Mohammed Musa, what he said was that the council were not paid for 2 years. All right, so they didn't have enough funds to, carry out the assessments, monitoring, and the rest. But now that they now have funds, the council is ready to make sure that all Nigerian businesses, ministries, parastatals, and what have you comply with the national standard of air emission. Like you said, clean air is very important, because carbon monoxide and hydrocarbons and combustion level can lead to a lot of diseases and sickness. Like we can have heartburn, we can have, for those who have hypertension, for those who have different asthma and the rest of them, respiratory diseases. So this is not just a matter of, let's say, it's not just a matter of let's do it right. It's also about human health. So I think the council, with the funds that they now have, the Director General is saying that they are all out to make sure that those who do not comply are taught a lesson, and they are starting from home, which is the office of the head of service of the Federation. So let's hope, because very soon I'll also be telling you, in a few days we'll be going to the NNPC, right, and the CBN. So I also have reports from there. So there's a lot of work to be done. And remember that this council has this mandate all across Nigeria to arrest and prosecute those who do not keep to the nationally determined, emission level all across Nigeria.
Conversation there, Ubong. Thank you so much for bringing us up to speed with this initiative, because it's one thing that needs to be out there. The greenhouse emission is something that has been the front burner, and alignment and implementation of all of this is one major step Nigerians need, because clean air is important. It affects our health. The respiratory diseases that we have across needs to be tackled if we have proper air we take in. Thank you so much, Ubong, for being a part of the reporter. Let's quickly turn our focus and tell you what's happening in Niger State. Niger State Governor Umar Bago has pledged 1,000 hectares of land to the Nigerian Army for its post-service housing development scheme aimed at providing homes for retired soldiers. The governor made the partnership announcement while receiving the Army's post-service housing Chief Executive Officer, Major General Isaiah Allison, at the state's liaison office in Abuja. Our correspondent, Sadia Yakubu, has the rest of the story.
Niger State Governor Muhammad Umar Bago described the project as a timely intervention, aligned with his administration's agricultural-driven housing vision. According to him, the land will support both residential and farming activities, offering veterans a renewed sense of belonging.
In your quest to reintegrate post-service assets into the society, I think it's in tandem, it's in sync with our global vision. Niger State is desirous of depopulating Abuja in the next 5 years to over 2 to 3 million people. Meaning, we intend to create more housing estates that are sustainable and depopulate Abuja as federal capital so that people will live in Niger and work in Abuja. I want to assure you that once you send us the size of land you want and the location we want, my team will work with you, closely with your team. Tell us where you work. We'll look at the geo location, look at the coordinates, we'll allocate your land and give you. I will come personally and sign the delivery of a CF40.
The Chief Executive Officer, Army Post-Service Housing, Major General Isaiah Allison, explained that the scheme aims to provide affordable homes for retired officers. He observed that partnerships with the state government are key to reducing development costs and making the project sustainable.
In the case of Niger, we have made efforts to make sure that we touch all geographical zones. We have a 6-finger strategy such that the development of the estates happen in all geographical zones concurrently. So effort was made to Kano, and now I have the privilege to ask.
The initiative is expected to strengthen civil-military relations and improve living standards for veterans in Niger State. Sadia Yakubu for Global TV News.
Well, there you have it. The governor there, who is known as the farmer governor, who is now turning his attention to service chiefs, service officers who have served the nation and also across there in his state there. This is one of the ways to see how they can partner, to see how the army are given proper housing. That's what part of the conversation they had at that meeting there. The governor is looking for a way to make things suitable. Of course, you can have military officers who have served properly and not given the proper recognition or the housing to come back and rest their heads after serving the nation. And of course, the housing is one of the major things. Of course, this is something that is cut across housing development scheme to see how this can also encourage other army officers who are still serving, because these ones are retired. They are retired but not tired, because at some point you need their expertise, you need their knowledge on some of the things they've done on the field to also inspire or also train other young officers who are also on the field. That's one of the reasons why this thing was also brought as a front burner, to ensure that they are encouraged. And of course, there you have where you have the post-service housing chief executive officer speaking there, Major General Isaiah Allison speaking at the governor's house, liaison office there, speaking there to the governor, telling him the necessary steps that are needed if we want to see more of this in terms of security. Of course, you know, Niger State also had the issue of insecurity that came in, but the governor is also seeing this as part of the welfare mechanism to guide the army officers and encourage others who are in service that no matter what you go through, in the front of the in the war cause, or in trying to ensure that there's safety for the nation, which is one of your major assignments given to you, we still have your back, we still have your minds and families in our thoughts, to provide a conducive environment that you can have to rest your head after all of this is put in order for you. So those are the conversation or the discussions that the governor had with the post-housing scheme ahead for provisions for the the army officers to give them that possible housing. Well, we're getting in touch with our reporter who was there to bring us up to speed on the issues discussed. Let her break it down for us. Of course, if the governor is pledging 1,000 hectares of land to transform the housing assets, there should be reasons and how they can also benefit and build their capacity with all of this. I think Sadia is ready and standing by for me now. Sadia, it's good to have you join me on the reporter. How are you doing, Sadia?
Hey, Patrick, good evening.
Sadia, how will the governor, Umar Bago, this pledge of the 1,000 hectares of land transform housing assets and economic opportunities for retired soldiers under the Nigerian Army's post-service housing development scheme? Of course, we know this also to boost their, but how will this build up for them in terms of economic possibilities for them building up their family after going through the hurdles of saving the people, Sadia?
Governor Muhammad Umar Bago's pledge of 1,000 hectares of land in Niger State for Nigerian Army's post-service housing development scheme, to me, is a major material contribution towards veterans' welfare. It can transform assets and opportunities in several ways. For example, it can expand housing capacity, the large land, create space for building sizable residential communities for retired soldiers and officers who often struggle to secure affordable housing after service, and then for integration of residential and agricultural use as well. The commitment isn't just for housing. The land can support mixed residential and productive agricultural activities. Veterans can engage in farming. Of course, you know, farming now is a very profitable profession or job or business as well.
In what ways can this partnership between state governments and the Nigerian Army, as highlighted by Major General Isaiah Allison, enhance sustainability and affordability of veterans' housing? Of course, you've mentioned some of the things they'll be looking at and all that. But beyond the housing, how could this initiative reshape civil-military relations, basically? Because we want to see how the relations in terms of the military and the civilians is built around this. Because, of course, they're out of service, they're retired. How would this reshape their mindset that they're now no longer in the war zone, but with the civilians, to see how they can build good relationship?
Right, Major General Isaiah, the head of the Post-Service Housing Development Limited arm of Nigerian Army, highlighted the importance of collaboration with states. Land donation reduces cost barriers, and it's one of the biggest costs in housing development in land acquisition. State governments contributing land, like Niger State just did, it makes housing projects more affordable, by lowering input costs, shared planned and then development. That's a partnership, a way of partnering, allowing coordination in planning, infrastructure, and utility service like roads, water, electricity, which promotes sustainable communities rather than piecemeal housing.
Yeah, I see that you have a deeper understanding of this because it tells how this is going to work. But I'm also looking at it in the area of welfare. This is also going to boost them. Improved the long-term welfare. Let's talk about, is this also going to improve the long-term welfare of the Army veterans in Niger State? Don't forget that Niger State is also one state which has had this issue of insecurity. Like I mentioned earlier before you joined me, we've seen insecurity play out. And of course, when you have someone who's retired out of the system of ensuring safety of the people, and then he's now left behind. But good thing enough is that the governor is not leaving those ones behind. They're trying to see how they can improve their welfare and also put them back. But is this a long-term thing in terms of the welfare for the Army veterans, or is this something that's a one-time thing for them? Because, of course, they're out of service right now.
Yes, thank you very much, Anita. This initiative carries a significance beyond road. Here is how it can affect broader social and institutional dynamics, strengthening the civil-military cooperation. That's the state active support signals mutual respect and recognition for military service. It can also build trust between military communities and civilian societies by showing that veterans are valued and cared for. The economic inclusion of veterans, creating opportunities for agriculture and small business activities for veterans can help, integrate them productively into local economies. This supports long-term welfare, reducing isolation or economic hardship for service.
All right, Sadia, it's good that we had you join us, talk about all of these things, and we look forward that you keep tabs to ensure that this becomes a long-term thing where the retired Army officers will see the need to understand why they should also serve the nation and will also be taken care of and not be left behind in all of these things. Thank you so much, Sadia, for bringing us up to speed on that. We look forward to more engagement with you. Thank you. Have a lovely day ahead of you. Well, it's a lot happening here, and of course, it's still the reporter. We'll talk a bit about our foreign scene, where we have stories building around the foreign scene. But let's give you a bit of the story where we have some reports coming in from Sudan on some issues. But let's tell you a bit of what's happening in Uganda, and then we'll bring you, of course, the story happening in Sudan, and then we'll have our correspondent join me to talk about all of these things. Well, Uganda opposition figure Kizza Besigye, who has been jailed since 2024 facing treason charges, has appeared at a court in Kampala, where his lawyers have accused the prosecution of withholding evidence. Besigye, a former personal doctor to Museveni and his political opponents for more than 25 years, has been in jail for about 15 months and has faced health issues during this time. Well, one of those things I think we also have some issues around Sudan, which will just bring you the clip, and then we'll have Uyi join us talk about all of the issues happening on the foreign scene. Let's take the report.
Fletcher issued a stark warning denouncing what he referred to as the impact of courts to aid in war-torn Sudan. The majority of the fighting is concentrated in eastern Jonglei State, where, according to the UN, some 280,000 people have been displaced since December. Doctors say they are overwhelmed with casualties.
You're seeing the impact of cuts, and the generator is not on for very long, and who knows where that funding is really going to come from in the future. And you're seeing the impact of a completely unnecessary war, a war for resources that people here will never themselves see. And they're asking me, is help coming? And I hope it is, but I don't know whether I can give them that reassurance.
The war has largely pitted the two main ethnic groups against one another, the Dinka, who mostly back President Kiir, and the Noa, mostly with Riek Machar, the country's former vice president. Uyi Agmofwegbe, reporting for Global TV News.
Amazing amazing. We have Hui here to speak to me on this issue. Like I said, it's the foreign scene and there's a whole lot happening. He's here to bring us up to speed with that. Hello, Hui. It's good to have you join me.
It's a delight, as always, Anita.
So let's start quickly with what's happening in Sudan before we talk about what's happening in Uganda. This humanitarian crisis has become something that we need to really tackle and see an end to all of this. What's the way forward, basically, what's happening in Sudan? Because we've seen the humanitarian, the UN stepping at every point in time. How can this become a thing of the past? We always have things that has to do with people being stranded on the streets, and it's becoming worrisome over time.
It's interesting. Well, once Donald Trump, of course, on behalf of the U.S. government, announced that, well, there were going to be cuts in aid, which started almost immediately. So we're saying this as part of the repercussions. And it's going to get worse, apparently, because the U.S. is not turning back on that position, at least not anytime soon, under the leadership of President Trump. So the question is, what do we do going forward? First off, Sudan, like many other countries, is now stuck almost like at a dead end, if you like. So to that end, it means that the African Union, for example, will need to do beyond talking. This is not time for talking shop, all right? It's time to act. It's time to now ask ourselves, how can Africa as a continent, because this is an African country apparently, plug the funding gap that has been created on account of the U.S. exits? That's what we must do going forward, because the UN sounds overwhelmed now, and that is quite understandable. All right, so because of our time, let's talk about Uganda in 1 minute, basically. What's happening in Uganda? What are the implications of this ongoing treason trial and prolonged detention of Kizza Besigye, especially amid his lawyer's claims of withheld evidence, basically? Yeah, obviously, you're just saying something we probably will call a combination of dictatorship and tyranny, because that's what's happening. President Yoweri Museveni, the president of Uganda, whom many regard as a dictator, is clamping down on dissents and those who are on the opposing side of Ugandan politics. That's what you're seeing. We have seen what he had done too with Bobby Wine. The other time they had an election, of course, he won. Bobby Wine, as we speak right now, can't even step his foot on the soil of Uganda. All right, so it's the African factor that every right-thinking person is trying to fight off, and we hope this doesn't become a bad situation becoming worse. All right, thank you so much, Uyi. And of course, that's the size of the program, The Reporter today. A quick reminder, the Global TV is on DSTV, channel 365, and Star Times, channel 276. To stay connected, kindly follow us across all social media platforms using @GlobalTVNG. Thank you for watching. I am Aniti Patrick. Bye for now.
Of how we use social media. It's not just about the platforms themselves.
To the preservation of the national unity and democratic stability.
Water is life, water is an essential service, and we must have to carry out the residents.
Local communities are not only vital to the growth of society, but they also form the bedrock of humanitarian development.